Good morning again, everyone, and welcome to Bible study as we continue the Gospel of Mark. And we got through several stories last week, and so now we are starting with Mark chapter 5. And we're going to read really probably one of the longest stories that we've come upon right now, chapter 5, verse 1. So whoever would like to volunteer to read, if you would unmute yourself and let us know and start reading.
I'll speak for you, Father.
Okay.
Regina, are you able to do you have your own version in front of you? Because you can't see our screen, I'm sure.
No, I cannot.
Okay.
But I think our versions are about the same.
Yeah, that's fine. So we're going to just keep reading till I tell you to stop.
All righty. The healing of the Gerasene demoniac. They came to the other side of the sea, to the territory of the
Gerasenes.
When he got, how do you say it?
Gerasenes.
Gerasenes.
Yep.
When he got out of the boat, at once a man from the tombs who had an unclean spirit met him. The man had been dwelling among the tombs, and no one could restrain him any longer. Even with a chain. In fact, he had frequently been bound with shackles and chains. But the chains had been pulled apart by him, and the shackles smashed. And no one was strong enough to subdue him. Night and day, among the tombs and on the hillsides, he was always crying out and bruising himself with stones. Catching sight of Jesus from a distance, he ran up and prostrated himself before him, crying out in a loud voice, "What have you to do with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I adjure you, my God, do not torment me." He had been saying to him, "Unclean spirit, come out of the man." He asked him, "What is your name?" He replied, "Legion is my name. There are many of us." And he pleaded earnestly with him not to drive them away from that territory. Now, a large herd of swine was feeding there on the hillside. And they pleaded with him, "Send us into the swine. Let us enter them." And he let them, and the unclean spirits came out and entered the swine. The herd of about 2,000 rushed down a steep bank into the sea, where they were drowned. The swineherds ran away and reported the incident in the town and throughout the countryside. And people came out to see what had happened. As they approached Jesus, they caught sight of the man who had been possessed by legion, sitting there, clothed and in his right mind. And they were seized with fear. Those who witnessed the incident explained to them what had happened to the possessed man and to the swine. Then they began to beg him to leave their district. As he was getting into the boat, the man who had been possessed pleaded to remain with him, with Jesus. But he would not permit him, but told him instead, "Go home to your family and announce to them all that the Lord in his pity has done for you." Then the man went off and began to proclaim in the Decapolis what Jesus had done for him, and all were amazed.
All right. Amen. Thank you, Regina. Okay, so that's quite a story. Thank you. I said that's quite a story. As I said, it's probably the longest story we've encountered so far, most detailed and lots of different aspects of it. So before we go into the actual story itself, let's get our geography down, okay, and remember where we are. Can you all see the map now?
Yes.
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 Okay. All right. Now, up until this time, Jesus has been up in Capharnaum. You see where my cursor is, in the sort of the northwest section of the Sea of Galilee. You see that area called Capharnaum. That's where Jesus has been healing and teaching and all of those kinds of things. And then remember last week they got into a boat, right? And remember that story? And the storm blew up and Jesus was asleep in the boat and they were all panicked and all that kind of stuff. Well, that's because they got into the boat and they started to head to the other side, okay, of the sea. And this is just one guess as to where they ended up. So you see this little town called Gergesa. They think that might be where these Gerasenes, the land of the Gerasenes are. But they're not really sure, because if you look down here in the area of the Decapolis, you also see this little town, this area called Gerasa. So that might be the area they're talking about too. But it's more likely it's just right here on the coast, because we just know the boat goes to the other side there, has this incident, and we're going to find out right after this story they go back to the other side. So it's unlikely that the boat came across here and then they traveled all the way down here to this part of the Decapolis. So chances are it's in this area somewhere. So one of the things that we have to do, especially in the Gospel of Mark, as we start getting more and more in it, you're going to hear Jesus going from one side of the sea to the other side of the sea, back to the other side. And basically he's going from the west side to the east side, from the east side to the west side. Okay. Anybody want to guess what is significant about who lives on the east side of the sea versus who lives on the west side of the sea?
Pagans.
Pagans live on which side?
On the east side.
Yeah, the pagans live.
Right, because we're familiar with Galilee, Samaria, Judea, all of these places, yep. Phoenicia we talked about, and Jesus has been there. But you don't hear a lot about what's going on the east side. So they're the pagans.
Yeah, they're the pagans or the Gentiles or the Greeks. There's all different ways that they're referred to.
Right.
And in this story, why do we know, other than just the fact that they went to the other side, what tips you off that we're in pagan or Gentile territory? What in the story tipped you off? Anybody want to guess?
I need to see the scripture again.
Yeah, let me put the story back up. It's down. It's in the second part of the story, beginning with verse 11.
Yeah.
Hillside. Let's see.
The swines.
The swine.
Swine. Yeah.
All right. So first of all, what is swine?
Pigs.
Pigs.
And what lets you know that we're in Gentile territory then?
Jews don't eat pork.
Yes, Jews don't
Right.
eat pork, so they would not be hurting swine.
Right.
So that's another way we know that Jesus is in the land of Gentiles, not in the land of the Jews. Okay,
Jews.
so so just to kind of go back to the scripture, so you see how it says they came to the other side of the sea. So that they were in Capharnaum, and now they're the other side of the sea to the
Right.
territory of the Gerasenes. As I said, they're not exactly sure exactly where that is, but that's the guess is where we saw. Okay. So let's just talk about the first part of the story about the man that Jesus encounters. What's your sense of him? What impression do you get? What's going on?
I thought the man was Hercules.
You thought it was Hercules, and why is that?
He was so strong that no one could subdue him.
Right.
Okay. And does that? Can you relate? Can you relate that to any real life experiences?
That one.
I've just heard stories about people who are. I just got feedback. Like people who are. I don't want to use the wrong psychiatric term, but because they're not quite right in the head, they somehow get this enormous strength. And even people who have been in difficult situations have lifted cars off people. So, I mean, it's possible that humanly we could have this strength all of a sudden.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly what I would say is that we definitely know that when people with mental illness have certain, maybe I don't know if as you asked there, I don't know if the right word is, but like a psychotic episode or something like that. They actually do have superhuman strength, and they're able. They're very hard to control.
I'm talking about people who have bipolar.
People
that have seizures. What about people that have seizures?
Yes.
People who have seizures, people who are bipolar. We also know that people who are spaced out on drugs, right? They also will have superhuman strength. And we know, that's one of the difficulties with policing. They can't subdue sometimes folks who are, having either psychotic or addictive reactions. That no matter what they do, they just can't seem to subdue the folks.
Father, I think that it's because they're scared and the adrenaline is in.
Okay. Yeah. And that. Go ahead.
Pat?
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. When you are afraid of something, and you can feel yourself get hyper.
Mm-hmm.
So it may just be the adrenaline that kicks in because they're trying to stop him, and he's trying to do what he wants to do, and he's afraid of them, and really they're afraid of him. Yeah. And it just kicks in, and it happens. What happens?
Yeah, and it also doesn't even have to be in a situation like that. When Esther says, people picking up cars and throwing them over because a loved one is inside, that obviously is the same thing. The this adrenaline kicks up and kicks in, and you get this superhuman strength. So, again, this is 2,000 years ago, but they're describing, right? They're describing a situation that we couldn't understand. I mean, this isn't like a fictionalized version. I mean, this can really happen, right? I mean, we know there are people out there who can be either having mental health issues or fear, as Pat say, or just being overcome by adrenaline, who could be doing all of these things. And this guy, obviously, they can't even bind him in shackles and chains. He pulls them apart. What else do you notice about him that that tells you a little bit more about what's happening to him?
Well, he's desperate to he wants to end his life. It seems, he's doing all kinds of things to himself because he's overwhelmed by what's happening to him. He don't know what to do.
Yeah, that's a great word. He's overwhelmed. I mean, he's he's crying out. He's bruising himself. He's just in dire need, right?
Right.
And so, are you afraid of him? Are you sympathetic towards him? Are you both, or what? How do you feel about this guy?
Well, I feel both. I mean, I would be afraid of him if I saw him coming at me. But then again, it seems that he looked, when he comes to Jesus, he's begging for help. He's begging for help. And sometimes, you can see these people that are, they're in our families, So it's like we see them begging for help, but we don't know what to do. We need a Jesus to come and just do what he did to him, but we are, helpless.
Exactly. It's heartbreaking.
Yeah. And how about his being there? Where do you think he is in related to the residential areas, the towns? Where do you think this is taking place?
It's like
yeah, it's clearly outside of the towns.
Yeah.
And the people have kind of put him there and tried to lock him up. Are they bad people who did that?
No.
I think they're just afraid of him.
They were afraid of him.
Yeah. Has anybody ever had to do that with a friend or a relative, or know of families where they've had to do that? They have to institutionalize people because they just don't know what to do.
Right. Yes. I got a brother like that. My younger brother. He's on drugs, and when he gets that stuff in him, he's overwhelmed. He overwhelms everybody, especially my mother. And she's got to call the police to get him away from her sometimes.
Right.
That is overwhelming, not only to him but to us too. It's like we can't get him to go and take care of himself. We can't make him do it. We can suggest that he do it, but he doesn't. He doesn't do it. And then he goes to these little rehabs, places that don't last but a minute. He has this 2-week alcohol syndrome where he acts sober for 2 weeks, and then he goes right back to wherever we were. It's just ain't nothing we can do. We're trying to help him, but it's like these people here. They don't know what to do, and they're afraid. And in those days, they think that they know anything about mental illness, so they're thinking that he is possessed by demons. And when you're in that kind of state, you basically are possessed by demons. You don't have any control sometimes over what you're feeling. You don't know how to control it, and you don't know how to explain it. They don't know how to explain what they're feeling to us and others. What are they feeling? And they want to be free of this, but they can't. Somehow they don't know how to be free of what they're feeling. And they don't mean to hurt you. I'm gonna say this about my brother. He doesn't mean to hurt us mentally or physically, but he don't know how to come about tell us that he's hurting and he afraid to go where he needs help. He's afraid, really is afraid to go to get the help he needs because he's afraid to go through the process it takes to be clean.
Right. Right.
Yeah, I think that's right. The reason, and thank you, Dee, for sharing all that. The reason I put this out is that I think the first thing is you have to realize that nobody's bad here, right? I mean, this man is clearly suffering, and like Dee said, I don't think you need to make a distinction between mental illness and possession by demons. I mean, they're all the same together. Does it really matter how you describe it? The man is being tortured, obviously, something that's outside of his control. And at the same time, though, he presents a danger to society, and they don't know what to do with him. So they put him outside of town, and they try to restrain him there for both his protection and their protection. So, nobody's right or wrong or good or bad. This is just a really tough situation.
And it reminds me of the recent thing I saw on TV recently about the the mother called the police on her son because she couldn't control him. And then
Yeah.
so they shot him in front of her.
Right.
They shot him in front of her, and now she's grieving because it's like now she's gonna feel responsible for his death because she called the police. She didn't know what else to do, and in a way, they didn't train to do anything but shoot. That's the problem that we're having.
Exactly.
They don't know anything to do but shoot. They don't know how to. I heard on TV what they need is when they have a domestic dispute, they should have a social worker or somebody with them when they come to those kind of issues. But they don't. They come with their partner, and the only thing they are trained to do is to react with violence. So they were moving back. I saw them. He was coming towards them, and they were moving back, and and telling him to stop, put the knife down, stop, and he continued to come on. So I think he was afraid, but he wasn't going to let them hurt him, and he was going to react to them first. I don't know, but to me, and then they so afraid they shoot him 16 times.
Right. I think you're right. I mean, that's the biggest issue is that violence can't necessarily be the first choice of having of response, but I do think they need to figure out other forceful ways of responding. I mean, a social worker with a book of diagnoses isn't going to really be able to solve the situation either. But I don't think you go from no physical intervention to shooting 16 times. I think there's probably middle grounds, which is really where I think what Dee is saying is we need better training all around in terms of how to respond to these things so that it's not either you do nothing or you shoot somebody 16 times.
But from the police perspective, and believe me, I'm not taking up on they're basically in their realm. When you go to a dispute at a house, that's when they get more afraid because that's usually where they get hurt.
Absolutely. No, you're right. Most people may not realize that, but police response to domestic violence is one of the deadliest situations for police. They are more likely to be killed in that situation.
Right. And that's when they go in that mindset that I'm going to be killed. Okay, well, if you jump, they're going to shoot. If you move, they're going to shoot because they figure you're trying to hurt them or kill them. But sometimes you really have to stop and think. Now, you have to go back to a lot of, unfortunately, mindset as far as black and white of how police feel about black men. Black men are scary to white police officers because basically somehow in their mind, they think black males are some superhuman like this gentleman. And that's why a lot of them are afraid, especially those of the older set.
Right. And that's exactly why you need better training. You may have to have more teams that are more specifically trained for these situations. But what we're in many times, there are parallels to what's going on in this gospel story and what we experience in our own lives. And point out is that, there are untenable situations all around and it's still going on today. Now, one of the things kind of as a little bit of a artistic or symbolic thing, which as we go on to keep in mind, he's dwelling among the tombs. Okay. So who's in the tombs?
Dead bodies.
People.
Yeah, the dead, right? The dead. And so by placing him among the tombs, Mark is basically telling us this man is as good as dead.
Yeah.
Right? His situation is so bad, he's as good as dead. All right. So now let's continue with the story. So he catches sight of Jesus, and what happens?
Father Rich, I'm kind of conflicted. It's the part where he sees Jesus and prostrates himself, I'm conflicted because, well, I'm conflicted because I think he's conflicted. I'm not sure if within himself he recognizes these demons in him or all that's going on, and he's prostrating himself before Jesus to ask for help. Because then it says, what have you to do with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I adjure you not to torment me. And it's like those are the demons who are responding to Jesus, right?
What do you
And
think?
No.
I'm thinking it's the demons because Jesus is telling them, unclean spirit, come out of the man. So it's the demons who are saying this. But what gets me then, it's like, I adjure you, by God. No, wait a minute. I got the wrong line.
No,
In
you're
other
right.
words, these demons recognize Jesus as God.
Okay.
Is that
So,
right?
well, anybody have a different idea?
Because in my mind, it's like the man is asking for help, but the demons recognize that this is Jesus, and that's why they asked to go into the swine instead of Jesus destroying them. But I just want to make sure that's how if that's right.
Well, the way I'm seeing this is, I'm like you, Esther. I was confused. For one thing, he's dwelling among the tombs. So how the heck he know about Jesus in the first place?
Right, that's true.
So then it
Somebody
makes
come to the church and told him about a man who casts out demons. I don't know, but as you are saying here, the demons recognize Jesus within himself that he's the Son of the Most High God.
Right.
I don't know. I just feel like the man himself did not know, like you just said, and the demons knew who he was.
Right.
And the demons were aware that Jesus could do something to them. And as you said, they were asking him not to kill him and put him in, someplace else.
Mm-hmm.
So the demons knew that he had the power to do. I don't think the man knew himself what was going on within him. I mean, that's just the way I'm thinking because I got to go first. How he know the possible?
To prostrate himself.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Could he not
when
have
you
heard
say
of
to
Jesus?
prostrate him,
Wait a minute. Go ahead, Pat.
Could he not have heard of Jesus? I mean, people did talk about Jesus. And the thing is, he's in a grave, he's in a cemetery where you have all the dead. And let's be perfectly honest. Most people don't want to go into a cemetery because they're scared of spirits. It's not for me, but for others. You have people who, if they're in a cemetery at night, they're terrified. I'm not afraid of the dead. It's the living I'm afraid of.
I know that's right.
The dead aren't gonna bother me. But
All
back
right.
in that day, you had beliefs that there were spirits walking around and demons walking around and all kinds of things out there in the world because they didn't have any earthly explanation for it. So when you don't have an explanation, you just think anything. So yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure he knew who Jesus was, and I'm pretty sure the spirits knew who he was. But that's why he needed Jesus to get the spirits out of him. And I believe he put him in the swine because pork.
Okay. Well, we'll get back to. We'll go to the swine in a minute. Let's just work with this here.
Okay.
So, there are really two things going on. So you have the man, right, himself, and then you have the evil spirit within him, or evil spirits within him. Okay, and it is hard. Well, in terms of the man's actions, it's hard to know whether he's the master of his own actions or if the demons are, forcing him to act. So catching sight of Jesus from the distance, he ran up and prostrated himself before him. Now, is the man doing that of his own volition, So does the man see Jesus and he runs up and prostrates himself before him, or do the demons see Jesus and force the man to run up and prostrate? That's not clear, okay? But what is clear is who the conversation is between.
Right.
And who is that? Who is the conversation between?
I think the demons are
between
the
Jesus and the
conversation.
demon.
Jesus and the demons. Yes. It's fairly clear that the conversation is occurring between Jesus and the demon. And part of that is, what do you have to do with me? Do not torment me, right? And if it's the man, you're scratching your head saying, well, how is he tormenting the man? Right?
Right.
But then Mark tells you, well, the reason this voice is saying, do not torment me, is because he was saying, unclean spirit, come out of the man, right? So it must be the unclean spirit who is saying, what do you have to do with me? Do not torment me. Because Jesus is saying, unclean spirit, come out of the man. You got that? You realize that? And then even as the conversation goes on, what is your name? And the reply is, Legion is my name. There are many of us. Well, that's clearly not the man, right? That's, again, the demon within the man. So while we in terms of the action, we don't know if the man is doing this or the demons are doing it. We certainly know that the conversation between Jesus and the demon, right?
Right.
Now, if you look at it that way, what's interesting, the demon calls Jesus the Son of the Most High God.
Right.
So what does that mean?
He recognizes
the demons recognize who he was.
Exactly. The demons know who Jesus is. And this isn't the first time we've seen this.
No.
It won't be the last time in the Gospel of Mark. So one of the key characteristics in the Gospel of Mark is that even though the people don't always get who Jesus is, the demons know who Jesus is. Why would that be? Why would you think the demons know who Jesus is?
Well, Lucifer was a fallen angel, and if the demons and those fallen angels are all in the same realm, then they would know who God is and who Jesus is, right?
Okay. Yep.
Okay.
So that's one thing if you want to kind of go with biblical stories and images. How about let's just work with the idea of good and bad.
Right.
Don't we normally, not all the time, normally know when something is right and something is wrong, or when you're fearful of something? I mean, you can walk down the street. If you see someone with a gun, you're pretty much going the other way.
Yeah. I mean, and the other way around, the other way of saying is that, evil knows good when it sees it, and good knows evil when it sees it.
That's true. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We're the ones that get confused. But evil and good, they know each other.
I think spirits know each other.
What's that?
I think the spirits know each other. I think that the evil spirits, like you just said, all the spirits are aware of each other. So the evil spirits are aware of, like you just said, Jesus, who Jesus is, and the good spirits are aware of who the legions are.
Right. You're right, Dee, because we've been in situations where, like we say, the hair stands up on the back of your neck when you're in a situation and it's not about what you're about. It's like it's evil. You can feel it. Yeah.
You often see it. I have seen people so angry that it looks like the devil has come into them. And I don't know whether you've ever seen that before, when you saw somebody that they were just, it's like the devil was talking. They did a transformation in front of you. And I was like, I feel like this happens to people, that this man, that the demon is so profound in him that even people can see it.
Father, can we go back up to verse 6 about the catching sight of Jesus from a distance? Was there a crowd or something?
Too late. We're on verse 10. No, I'm only kidding you.
Was there a crowd that he caught sight of Jesus? Was there a crowd?
Well, we don't know that there's a crowd. We know Jesus is with his disciples, right?
Right.
My sense is that the man is by himself, because he's been kind of banished, and he's out there all by himself. But probably what's happening is he's at the tombs that are a bit of a distance from the shoreline, so Jesus and his disciples come up to the shoreline and they kind of get out of the boat maybe, and he sees Jesus from a distance.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense to you?
I guess so.
What makes you think that there might be a crowd?
Because when he caught sight of Jesus, usually when a person is catching sight of Jesus, it's because he's with a crowd and he's performing miracles and stuff. And of course, being that people hear about this, and of course, as a person, as people being curious, when they see a crowd, they want to know what's going on.
Well, could it be that he's up on a hillside because the swine were up and they were feasting?
Right.
And saw him from a distance because he wasn't on flat land; he was up on a elevated land, and therefore you could see him at the sea.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, remember that picture? Let me see if I still have that picture I showed you.
You, Pat.
Okay.
Let me see if I can find that picture. Remember I showed you the picture of what some of the shoreline looks like?
Mm-hmm.
So let me see if we can do this right. Okay, there you go. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So remember, how some of the shoreline is just like Pat said, there are these hills and they go right into the shoreline. So, we don't know. Maybe this guy is up here somewhere on the hill and Jesus comes up on the boat over here and then he catches sight of him and he runs down to see him. My guess is, I always thought when I pictured in my mind, the man is so kind of consumed by these spirits that are driving him crazy that he's so constantly consumed by these spirits. So then all of a sudden he looks up and he catches sight of Jesus. Like Jesus could have been there for a while, but he just didn't notice him because, the spirits are tormenting him. And now he catches sight of him and runs up to him. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know that. I mean, there could be other people there. We know there are going to be swine herds and stuff, but it's hard to know exactly what the scene looks like.
The way I see it, I still think the man didn't know who Jesus was. The spirits did, and when the spirits caught sight of Jesus, and as they had this conversation, they might have thought that the man did come up to Jesus. Now this is the man, but the spirits might have thought that Jesus came to that side of the the hill, river, whatever, the shore. Jesus came to that side of the shore to do something to the spirits. They did not know what his purpose was for coming to that side. So they thought he was coming to torment them. And, that put fear in the demons.
Well, and you could say, I mean, like in terms of this fight between Jesus and the demons, who started it?
The demons.
You think?
Well,
maybe the man for had a respite. Maybe the demons left him alone for just that minute And just that, because the man knows something was wrong with him. And maybe he knew or heard about this man named Jesus. And maybe for that moment, he may have escaped from that torment that he's going through. And maybe that's when he ran towards Jesus. And as he ran towards Jesus, the demon said, "Oh, he's going towards Jesus. Let's overcome him again." Something like that, you know?
Okay.
Well, I think Jesus started this fight because it gets to the point, unclean spirit come out of the man. If Jesus hadn't said that, everything would have been fine with those demons. They would have, just kept doing what they were doing. Jesus started that fight.
Yeah, I actually believe that. I think Jesus started the fight. We don't know why. I mean, I think what was it, Catherine, who was saying about, maybe he had a respite and he sees Jesus and he runs up to him. I think that's perfectly possible. I mean, he could have just seen him and he was happy to see another person in the area because he's among the dead. He's been abandoned there. And now he sees this person and he just, as one human being being attracted to another human being, he runs to him. But I think the fight started with Jesus started the fight. I think he started right away saying, Jesus knew the man was possessed. And he right away starts saying, "Unclean spirit, come out of the man." And that's when they respond, "What do you have to do with us? What do you have to do with me, Jesus, son of a, do not torment me." Because Jesus is already commanding the spirits to come out of him. So I think Jesus picked the fight personally. And why not, right? Jesus, just like evil recognizes good when it sees it, good recognizes evil when it sees it. So no reason to believe that Jesus didn't recognize immediately that the man was possessed by these unclean spirits.
Who knows what the man said to Jesus? I mean, other than what's in Mark, the man may have rushed up to Jesus and said, "Have mercy on me." And
Absolutely.
as soon as we ask Jesus for mercy, he's right on it.
And he's right on it, and he's going after the unclean spirit. Mm-hmm. So again, he's the one who's picking the fight because he don't want anything to do with unclean spirits. All right, so they plead with him not to drive him away. Now let's continue with the story because there seems somewhat of a little bit of a humor in this, and maybe a head-scratching oddity. There's a large herd of swine, and they were feeding there on the hillside, right? And the demons say, "Send us into the swine. Let us enter them." What do you interpret anything from that?
They had to go, but they didn't want to just disappear. They wanted to go into the swine, but then Jesus had the swine fall over the hill, so they still died.
Wait a minute. What was the last part? I missed that, Regina.
Well, I believe the demons, they knew Jesus was going to get rid of them get rid of them from the man. So they did not want him to just get rid of them, period. No more, boom. So they asked to go into the swine.
Okay.
Jesus did that. But then the swine all fell over and drowned, so they still died. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, no, I think that's an interesting point that Regina has. I mean, apparently they need Jesus's permission to go into the swine, right? So apparently Jesus has the power to destroy them altogether right offhand. But rather than do that, they say, "Let us go into the swine." And so Jesus says, "Well, okay." But did that do them any good?
No, I think
no, because they didn't know that he was going to send the swine in the water.
Um, I think that they thought that they could go into the swine and control the swine, right? And
Mhm.
the swine went crazy. The swine were crazy too. They were overwhelmed and they rushed right down to the sea where they almost drowned. Because they didn't know any better.
Yeah. Yeah, and we don't know why the swine run in, right? I mean, there's no indication that Jesus makes the swine run in. Um, so, I mean, to me, there's kind of a humor to the story because the demons figured, oh well, we'll get one up on Jesus by letting him send us into the swine, and that doesn't help them either. Um, and why if Jews were reading this, why do you think they'd be smiling?
Because all those pigs drowned.
Yeah, they don't like
They
pigs.
don't like pigs, right?
Yeah, so there's this, it's kind of an interesting thing that
Yeah.
the demons think their way out is to go into the swine, and Jesus says, "Fine, go into the
No.
swine," and boom, that's the end of them. Um, and so the swineherds run away and report the incident to the town throughout the countryside. Right now, the swineherds. What are swineherds?
They're like shepherds, right?
Right.
But what are
They
they?
heard the swine.
They heard the swine, right? Yes, I just wanted you to point that out. A swineherd is just like a shepherd, but a shepherd herds what?
Sheep.
Sheep.
A shepherd herds sheep, and a swineherd herds swine.
Swine.
So the swineherds run away. What do you think? Imagine yourself as one of those swineherds. What's going on in your mind?
I'm going to get in trouble.
Right. Right.
What? Who said what? I'm going to get in trouble?
I'm going to get in trouble because all those swine have just killed themselves.
Yeah.
So they run away. Imagine yourself. What do you tell if you're a swineherd? What do you tell the townspeople?
That my swine all of a sudden went crazy and went down and drowned themselves. I don't know what happened, but they all of a sudden went. They did a stampede and I couldn't stop them, and they ran into the sea and they drowned.
Okay.
And who going to believe that?
Who's going to believe it?
Who's going to believe it? I mean, if your kid came in and told you, "Mom, the whole house is flooded," I don't know what happened, but the sink is turned on.
Oh, then okay. So you're all right. Now you're not the swineherds. Now you're the people. You're the townspeople. So what are you going to do when these swineherds tell you of this story?
Not going to believe them.
What are you going to do?
Yes, they run for your life.
Right.
No. What do they do? What do they do?
They believe the man.
From the they themselves leave.
Wait a minute. There are too many people speaking at once. Look at the story. What happens? The swineherds go and tell the townspeople. What do the townspeople do?
Townspeople get angry, so the swineherd probably figure they better get out of there too.
Well, no, let's do it a step at a time. I'll point you to look at verse 14.
Yeah.
The swineherds run away and they report the incident to the town and the countryside. And what do the people do?
They came out to see what happened.
Come out to see what happened. They think these guys are crazy, right?
Right.
What do you mean the swine all of a sudden ran into the sea? And then what happens when they come out to inspect to see for themselves what had happened?
Well, ask Jesus to leave.
Jesus depart from their coast.
Okay.
Before they talk to Jesus, what happens when they come out to find out what happened?
Okay. They know
about the man in his right mind, sitting down.
Okay, they see the man who was possessed sitting in his right mind. And do you think they would have known who the man was?
Yes.
Yeah, no. They chained him up.
Absolutely. They know who this guy is. And now they come out and they see him there clothed and in his right mind. And they were seized with fear, right? They know something happened. Okay. And then, so the fact that that man now is all healed and in his right mind, clearly something happened. And then what happens next?
And they tell Jesus to leave their district.
No, not yet.
Not yet.
What happens? Verse 16.
Afraid, fear.
But what happens? Verse 16.
Verse 16.
Oh, they witnessed. They witnessed the incident.
Right.
Right. So
the witnesses tell what happened.
Right. So going back earlier, we know there are other people there, right? Remember, we don't know if it's a crowd. We know there are other people there because there are witnesses. And the witnesses explain what had happened to the possessed man and to the swine. So even if the swineherds didn't understand why, there were witnesses that made the connection between what happened to the possessed man and what happened to the swine, right?
Right.
They go ahead.
I'm asking, who are they trying to get rid of? They asked somebody to leave their town.
Okay, so then they began to beg him to leave their district. Okay, that's a good question. Who's him? Who do they beg to get to leave their district?
Probably Jesus.
Jesus.
Probably Jesus. I mean, if you can make the demons go into the swine and the swine kill himself, you think you want to be around that person? I don't think so.
So you think they're afraid of Jesus's power?
I think they're afraid. I mean, if no matter what, if you came up on somebody that could do this, I think you'd go the other way.
Okay, so maybe they are.
Might not have been afraid.
He might put something in you.
All right, so that may be one reason they ask him to get rid of, because they're afraid of him because of his power. What might be another reason to ask him to leave?
They might not be afraid of his power, maybe. Maybe they just don't want to lose any more pigs.
Yeah, right. This guy got rid of 2,000 pigs, and these people eat pigs. Okay? This was their livelihood.
This have anything to do with the pigs. I mean,
No. Remember, we're in Gentile territory. These people eat pigs.
That's right.
These people eat pigs. That's why you had a herd of them. And go ahead.
Are there two definitions depending on the Bible that you're reading? Because I read one time that they just fell over the hill.
Well, it could have been.
The water.
It could have been maybe a different version of the story, but Mark tells us the herd of about 2,000 rushed down the steep bank in the sea where they were drowned. Right?
They have to go over the hill to get to the sea.
So there were 2,000 pigs. That's a lot of bacon.
Hey, Regina, how the steep bank could have been a hill. That's still a hill.
Yeah. I mean, it could be just a translation, or it could be, I don't know. I haven't looked at the other versions of the story. Remember, some of the same stories are in the other thing. But I think they want to get rid of this because this man just destroyed their livelihood and their food. Right?
Yeah, that's a lot of pigs.
That's a lot of pigs.
Yes.
Now, let's work with that idea. Jesus comes in. How do you feel about Jesus? He comes in. Here's this guy who is sick. And in order to heal the sick man, he destroys 2,000 pigs. That was the livelihood and the food of these townspeople.
Jesus was Jewish. I don't think he thought about that as being food for somebody.
You don't think he thought of you don't think he realized that the Gentiles eat pigs and he's just destroyed their meals and their livelihood?
I don't think he meant on purpose to destroy their meals. he saw the pig as being dirty and crazy anyway, and it's best to get rid of them than to get rid of that man who the devils were in.
Yeah, but didn't the spirits ask to go into the pigs?
The spirits did ask to go into the pigs.
So if they asked, he granted them their wish.
Well, but at what cost? At what price?
Yeah.
That wasn't, I mean, I guess Jesus didn't look at it as, or even think about it. They wanted to go into the swine. He said, go. They jumped off into the water and they drowned. I mean, I just think he gave them their wish. I mean, it's like if you have your child and you tell your child, don't touch the stove because it's hot, and they touch the stove anyhow. All you can do is tell them, but he let them go. He gave their wish.
Okay.
I have a question. Jesus exercising his Jewish rabbinical authority over the swine were no good anyway. He was a Jewish man and he practiced Judaism, right? And so they meant nothing to him as a Jew. And so he was indifferent about them dying.
Yeah,
allow them to run over the cliff.
Yeah, I mean, these are, again, and up front, I'll just let you know, we don't know what the answer to these questions are, right? Okay, so there's not going to be a right or wrong answer to it. But you can come at it from a perspective is, yeah, Jesus is a Jew, and what the hell does he care about swine, right? They're unclean animals, and he don't eat them, and his people doesn't eat them. So what the hell, if the demons want to go into it, God bless them, let them go in. And that is one way of.
I have one question.
To be that uncaring just because it's not your religion or they're not your people.
Okay,
I mean, this is like what's going on today. We have people that you don't like them because they're a different color and they don't look like you, so you don't care what happens to them. I hope he's better than that.
Well, right now that's the other side of it, and then let me kind of finish Pat's thought, and then we'll debate it. So the other side of it is that, well, Jesus isn't an idiot. He knows that Gentiles eat swine, and that he knows these herds of swine are people's livelihood and their meals. Even though he doesn't eat pork, is he that uncaring that he would destroy the livelihood and the food of so many other people? And one way is to say, well, no, he understood that, and either he didn't care, which isn't a very satisfying answer for many of us, that Jesus didn't care, or he felt that the price of the 2,000 swine was worth the healing of this one man.
Of that one man.
Now, what do you think of that?
I was thinking about the reading that morning about Jesus leaving the 99 to go save the one.
Wait a minute. I'm getting a lot of feedback, Dee, so it's hard for me to hear what you're saying.
Okay. I said, I agree with you. Remind me of the gospel you read this morning about Jesus leaving the 99 to save the one. And I think that's what happened here. I think that he thought that it was more important to save this man than to worry about all these the swine or the livelihood of all the people. They will get more swine, but this man could not survive with these demons in him. So that's what I'm thinking. They will be okay. They will get more, and Jesus would know that they would be okay. He would know that the people would survive, and after all that happened.
Right, I agree. It's like saving the soul over the material and the flesh.
I have a question. I didn't see anywhere where it specifically says that the spirits were killed. I mean, the pigs were killed. The spirits had, minds of their own. I mean, could they not have just came out of the pigs before they drowned and gone somewhere else?
Yeah, I mean that's a good question. We don't know. Women getting feedback. Can you figure that out? Where that feedback's coming from? Okay. Yeah, we don't know exactly what happens to the spirits. We know that the pigs were drowned, right? But we don't know that the spirits were killed. We kind of assume that, but you're right. We don't know that. But one way or another, we know that the swine are instrumental to the removal of the spirits from this man, right?
Right.
And that Jesus permits that. So somehow the price of getting rid of these demons is the 2,000 swine that are killed, that are drowned. All right. Now, anybody have any more thoughts from what we were just saying about that?
No, I think you're right. They could have came out of the swine and went somewhere else. Evil always find another place to rest. And, they might have left that area and went someplace else. The story, to me, goes on to say that what happened was it was in the man, Jesus came, it was in the swine, and now the man is okay. And the swine that it went in has also gone. So it comes out and the end, and then the people, it comes out to be a feel good story. And the people were all amazed at what happened. I still think that even though this happened, like things happen to us and we think it's horrible, in the end, it all works out for the good. And I think that even though this happened, it still worked out for the good. It's worked out good for the man, but it's also worked out for the good of the people because now they, some of them believe, and they believe in Jesus, who Jesus was, and what he could do.
Okay, this story took on a whole new meaning for me when Obamacare first came about and all of those debates were going on. And to me, I interpreted this story and preached it around that time, and still do, that we all have something invested in each other's health, and Jesus knows that this man and his illness isn't only of his concern; it's the concern of the community.
Right.
And there's a price that the community pays in this man being ill, and there's a price that the community has to pay in this man regaining his health. And so I would say the way I interpret this story is to say that Jesus understands that we're all in this together.
Yeah.
And that when one person is sick, the whole society is sick. And when one person needs to be healed, the whole society needs to pay for his healing. And that Jesus knew exactly what he was doing. But for him, the price of the fact that the community had to pay for the price of this man's healing,
right,
was exactly as Dee said. They'll get over it. They'll figure out how to replace the swine. But this man's health was worth the 2,000 swine. And part of what we have to learn as a society is that it's not each man for himself when it comes to the health of people. That we are all responsible for each other's health. And personally, I think Jesus, whether it was Obamacare and the way it went about it, who knows? But the idea the idea that the society is responsible for the health of the people is something he would have supported. And that this notion that no, we're each responsible for our own health care is not something that would have flown with Jesus.
Or is it like saying we get better when we all are better?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, St. Paul says it is that when one member of the body is ill, the entire body suffers, right? And I think Jesus, that's where Jesus is coming from, that healing is just like illness affects the whole society has to be involved in the healing as well. And that this is the price the society pays to heal this man. And Jesus doesn't have a problem with that. And it's not because he's Jewish and these people are Gentiles and they're swine. I think if it were on the other side and it was shepherds, and sheep, I'm not so sure Jesus would have had a problem sending the sheep into the sea, because this is what it costs to heal people.
And you have a point. I want to say that the people had to pay a price because they wanted this man out of their life. They put him in the tomb. They put him away from them, and because they couldn't handle him. So the price for him to get better and back in society was the cost of those swine. Now, even though the swine is gone, but the man comes back as a whole person to be a part again of that community and be a help to that community, be a vibrant part of that community. And that is what's probably going on today, that we need people to be healed. And just like they said in the book of Genesis, we are our brother's keeper. We are our brother's keeper. And we need to put a sign up to say that. Am I my brother's keeper? Yes, we are. And if one part, sort of like I remember Baltimore County thinking that because Baltimore City had a drug problem and Harford County thinking that Baltimore City had a drug and crime problem, it wasn't their problem. But now it don't cross the boundaries. It's everybody's problem. Now it becomes a state problem. Their drugs and crime has crossed them. They should have helped when it was just in Baltimore City. They should have helped then. And now that it's crossed the boundary, they're saying now it's all that. Yes, we're all our brother's keepers. So those people in our city or in our country, the world, who has mental illness, we need to find a way to help them. We need to be on board to help them. And it can't be that every time a person who has a mental illness is shot. Some people are born with mental illness. Some people get mental illness through life. Life doses occur. But we don't know how that happens. But we also know that we can be a part of the solution. And to take Obamacare to court and hoping that the Supreme Court would do something to stop that is demise totally wrong. And we need to pray that they don't do that, because healthcare is important. And one more thing I wanted to share with you all, and I was sharing it with my daughters. Most of you know, Pat knows that we lost a son. I lost my oldest child. And my oldest child had AIDS. He had AIDS, and that's why he died. And he had the time that Magic Johnson had AIDS. And I remember when he came home, and as a parent, when your children come home, you try to find a way to fix stuff. That was one thing I could not fix. And that still breaks my heart. I had to go to Father Mill crying because there was something a mother couldn't do. I couldn't fix that. And he kept telling me that he was going to get this medicine and that he was going to be healed like Magic Johnson. Well, he didn't have money and he didn't have health care. He was 32 when he died. He didn't have money and he didn't have health care. So he had to go every time he got sick, he went to all the hospitals in the city and the county, and they would take him to the emergency room, put him in the emergency room, build him up for a minute, and send him back out because he didn't have health care. That's how important health care is. My son died because he didn't have health care. And I still say that. Health care would have. And when I see those commercials about people living now with AIDS, and stuff, sometimes it breaks my heart because my child wasn't here and there wasn't all that to help through his crisis. I'm sorry, I just had to share that.
No. Well, thank you for sharing, because that's the real picture here. And that's exactly when people say, I don't want to have to pay the price so that other people have health care. This is exactly what Jesus is saying. That's exactly what's going on here. Get out of our town because we don't want to have to pay the price of you taking our swine so that other people can be well. And Jesus is too bad. We're all in this together. And that is the debate in our society. We are incredibly individualistic. And, if I can afford the health care, that's my business, but I'm not paying for you to have health care if you can't afford it. And that's certainly not how Jesus would view it. So let's just finish it up since we're at the end. So the man, once Jesus gets back in the boat that he's going to leave, and the man asks him if he can go with him. And Jesus does something unusual here that he doesn't do in other places. He says, no, you stay and go home to your family and tell them all that the Lord has done for you. Okay. Whereas so far in the other stories where someone was healed, he tells them, don't tell anybody about it, right? And this is one of those interesting twists, because if you remember in the other stories, we decided Jesus doesn't want them to say anything because he's afraid they're going to misunderstand who Jesus is as the Messiah, right? That there's a lot more that they have to learn about the kind of Messiah Jesus is going to be before they can go start proclaiming the good news. The interesting thing is all of that occurs in the Jewish side.
Right.
Okay. So when you're in the Gentile side, they don't know what a Messiah is. They don't have any preconceived notion of what the prophets have promised in the Messiah. So Jesus isn't really concerned that they're going to get it wrong, right?
Right.
Could it be that he's trying to now bring the Gentiles into the religion?
Exactly. And no, he is exactly doing that. And he's telling them to announce all that the Lord has done for you, right? So in the Gentile side, Jesus wants to get the word out because he wants them to know that God is there for them as well. And he's not afraid they're going to get the idea of a Messiah all messed up, because Gentiles don't have an idea of a Messiah anyway. That's not part of their religion. It's the Jews that have a Messiah, not the Gentiles. So you've got this interesting flip that when Jesus is in on the Gentile side and he heals a Gentile, he says, go ahead, go out and tell everybody what God is doing for you. And when he's on the Jewish side, he's telling, well, hold off for a little while. You got things to learn about who the Messiah is. So don't tell anybody just yet. Okay. So that's the story of the Gerasene demoniac. We'll continue now next week with the Jairus's daughter and the woman with the hemorrhage. But before we call it a day, does anybody have any other questions about the story we just did today?
I just got a comment. It's the comment about the people who begged Jesus to leave their town. They, again, when you said that they probably were glad that Jesus did heal this man, and that this man is brought back to society. So a little piece of them is so glad that they're begging him, because if they were not glad that he did it, they wouldn't have begged him to get out of town. They would have thrown him out of town.
Well, that could be. I would say they were happy that the man was healed, but they weren't happy with the price they had to pay for it.
Right.
But you're right. I mean, if they were that insistent, they would have just picked them up and thrown them out of town. But okay, well, it's a great story. Even, you know, there's a lot in it. You've got to unpack these stories. So it was the longest story we've come upon so far. Next week, we're actually going to have another fairly long story. It's going to be actually 2 stories wrapped into one. So we will continue next week with chapter 5, verse 21. But thank you all for all of your insights about this week's story, and we'll call it a day. Amen.
Amen.